Investigators this morning say newly found debris almost certainly comes from the missing Malaysian jetliner. One of the two pieces is apparently from the outside of the plane, the second from the inside.
Could this aircraft part, washed ashore on the island of Réunion, provide an answer to one of aviation's greatest mysteries? It was found by beach cleaners early yesterday morning, covered in marine.
For a decade now, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 has been the ultimate riddle in aviation. A modern jetliner, a Boeing 777 with 239 souls aboard simply vanishes from radar on a routine overnight flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. No distress call, no wreckage, no survivors. Even after one of the largest and most expensive search efforts in history, the story of MH370 remains frustratingly incomplete. Its disappearance has spawned countless theories, from hijacking and pilot suicide to secret landings and military cover-ups. Yet amid the speculation, tiny clues have surfaced, and the most intriguing of them are not high-tech satellite pings or sonar scans, but clusters of sea creatures clinging to battered pieces of aircraft that washed ashore thousands of miles from the last known flight path.
Investigators this morning say newly found debris almost certainly comes from the missing Malaysian jetliner. One of the two pieces is apparently from the outside of the plane, the second from the inside. The fragments were discovered in South Africa and on a tiny island. Investigators believe Flight 370 went down in the Indian Ocean.
The first real breakthrough came in July 2015, 16 months after the plane vanished. A hunk of composite material, rough-edged and encrusted with marine life, was found on Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. It was soon identified as a flaperon, part of the trailing edge of a 777 wing, and confirmed to be from MH370. It was the first solid proof that the jet had ended in water. The flaperon carried unexpected passengers, gooseneck barnacles, known scientifically as Lepus antiphora. These strange little crustaceans attach themselves to floating objects, grow quickly, and record environmental conditions in the layers of their shells. To marine scientists, they were like living time capsules, each layer carrying hints about where and when they began their journey.
I think we can say that as of today, there is a very strong supposition that the flaperon found on the beach of the island of Réunion on the 29th of July actually does belong to the Boeing 777 of flight MH370, which disappeared on the 8th of March 2014 for two reasons.
At first, researchers were thrilled. Here was a chance to track the plane's last movements, not through electronics, but through biology. The barnacles were studied like forensic evidence, measured, analyzed, compared. Experts noted that Lepus larvae drift as plankton until they find something floating to cling to, usually settling in shady, submerged spots. Once they glue themselves in place, they grow fast, sometimes doubling in size in weeks if conditions are right. Their shells pick up chemical signatures from the water.
They will start the critical CSI work on the floating debris.
The important thing is to make sure it's clearly identified as a 777 part.
A reliable U.S. government source tells ABC News Boeing engineers have seen this number, 657BB, on the debris, and it matches a 777.
Temperature, salinity, and with enough data, scientists can map where the debris might have traveled. This led to an explosion of research worldwide. Scientists grew barnacles in labs, on buoys, even on volcanic pumice to learn how they develop in different seas. But as the research expanded, so did the questions. The barnacles didn't tell a neat story. In fact, they revealed gaps and contradictions. The largest Lepus on the flaperon measured only about 35 millimeters, a size consistent with roughly 3 or 4 months of growth, not the 16 months that had passed since the crash. Other debris pieces, including a cabin closet door fragment and a section of engine cowling found in South Africa, told similar tales. Barnacles too small to account for more than a few months at sea. One heavily colonized piece yielded hundreds of specimens, but none larger than about 20 millimeters, suggesting mere weeks of drift. This was baffling. Where had the debris been during that missing year? The ocean currents that carried the flaperon to Reunion should have started their work immediately. Scientists scientists tried to reconcile the evidence. Could predators have stripped older barnacles away? Could conditions have stunted growth? Experiments in warmer waters like those around the Maldives showed barnacles could reach 35 millimeters in just 3.5 months. If anything, growth could have been faster, not slower. The barnacles also highlighted another mystery: how the debris floated. When French investigators placed the flaperon in a tank, they found it floated partially out of the water, riding high with an edge exposed to air. Yet barnacles covered surfaces that should have been dry, implying they had been submerged. Lepus simply don't grow in air. Was the piece at some point fully underwater? Was it oriented differently? Or was something wrong with the assumptions? Drift modeling didn't make things easier. Australian agencies used data from research buoys and computer models to simulate where debris from a southern Indian Ocean crash would travel. They struggled to make the paths line up with where MH370's pieces were found. The Mossel Bay fragment in South Africa was particularly problematic, ending up hundreds of miles off the expected track. Even after refining models, scientists could only explain the paths if the flaperon floated unusually high and was pushed by wind, but that would leave its barnacles dry. The barnacle's chemical records added yet another layer. In one study, a shell showed it began life in water around 80 degrees Fahrenheit and later drifted into cooler waters of about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That suggested the debris spent time in relatively warm seas west of Reunion, perhaps near Madagascar, far from the official search area southwest of Perth, Australia. Some experts suggested this could mean the crash site was not where authorities believed, or that debris didn't begin drifting immediately after the crash. These contradictions have stirred debate among investigators and scientists. Are the barnacles telling us the crash site is wrong? Were the pieces moved or delayed before drifting freely? Or are the biological records incomplete, waiting for older specimens to be released for study? French authorities still hold the largest barnacles, which could hold crucial data but have not shared them widely. What all of this reveals is that the investigation into MH370 remains deeply unsettled. The barnacles are just one piece of a complex puzzle that includes unexplained gaps in satellite communication, the sudden loss of transponder signals, and years of unsuccessful seabed searches covering more than 93,000 square miles. Each clue seems to generate more questions. As one scientist put it, sometimes you preclude the possibility of even looking for evidence because you have very strong priors against it. The assumptions about where the plane went and why may need revisiting. To this day, fragments of MH370 are some of the only tangible evidence we have. They wash ashore quietly, carrying secrets in the shells of tiny sea creatures. They suggest timelines that don't match expectations, hint at journeys no one predicted, and even raise the possibility of misdirection. Could human action, intentional or accidental, explain the oddities? Could debris have been planted, as some have speculated? There's no proof of that, but the anomalies remain. And so the mystery deepens. 10 years on, the Indian Ocean still guards its secrets. The barnacles, humble, drifting, clinging to whatever floats, have given scientists both tantalizing clues and maddening contradictions. They've opened new frontiers in marine biology and forensic oceanography, showing how living creatures can become witnesses to tragedy. They may yet help tell the final story of MH370, but for now, their message is clear. Something about the official narrative doesn't add up. The search for answers, like the debris itself, continues to drift.